I'm your host, Brydon DeWitt, and today I'm joined by a special guest, Nichole Labott, Managing Director at SageView Advisory Group. Welcome back to the Benefits Companion, Nichole.
Thanks, Brydon, for having me. Great to be here.
So in this episode, I was hoping we could discuss the differences in savings habits between millennials and boomers. How do these two different groups view retirement differently?
Well, it's really fascinating, Brydon. Just recently, Schwab did a pretty large study on how millennials and boomers kind of approach and their saving for retirement, as well as kind of their mindset. What I found really interesting is that millennials have started saving for retirement a full decade sooner than boomers. I think we always think that that boomers know how to do most things right, but I think the millennials have them beat on this one. I think it's also interesting, too, that millennials will spend less time managing their finances in retirement than boomers do. I'm sure you probably know of folks that are boomers that really enjoy it more as a pastime of following the market and looking at their retirement savings account balance often. Whereas I think millennials have more of a mindset of kind of set it and forget it.
And maybe that could be because of their age, that if they're younger, they have so many more years before retirement that they can set it and forget it. And maybe when they start reaching their 50s, they're going to start paying more attention.
Yeah, I think that's the case. And another thing that was revealed through this study is kind of the overall mindset of saving for retirement. So, as a boomer, the main focus was basically accumulating wealth and accumulating healthy habits for savings. Whereas millennials view retirement more as like pursuing a dream or lifestyle, having opportunities to pursue their passions, which is, I think, a kind of fundamental shift in really just the overall approach and mindset to what retirement is going to be like.
And I wonder if part of the difference is that boomers come from a generation that at least their parents or maybe they had defined benefit pension plans, and the millennials have come of age in an era where we're reliant on defined contribution plans, 401k plans, for example. And perhaps that's a reason that they have a different outlook on the retirement savings.
I think you're 100% right. And I think what else is very interesting is that, boomers placed a higher emphasis on stability and consistency, while millennials focus more on adventure and flexibility. And that's really shows itself within the Schwab study that boomers kind of prioritize home ownership over travel, whereas millennials will prioritize travel way over home ownership. A fundamental difference between the two as well is that only 5% of boomers invest in digital currencies and 24% of millennials invest in digital currencies, which really is fodder that we're likely to see more emphasis on, investments like Bitcoin, which I know you're aware of the DOL's recent guidance around cryptocurrency. And I think you've even actually done some other podcasts on this subject.
Right. And that's part of the reason I think we have the guidance from the Department of Labor is that employers are feeling pressure from millennials to be able to invest in cryptocurrency in their 401k plans.
Yeah, I found it fascinating when the DOL issued that guidance. I think it was like 2 or 3 weeks later, the largest record keeper in the U.S. announced that they were going to allow plan sponsors to allow Bitcoin in their 401k investment lineups, and participants could save as much as 20% in that asset class.
So I think I know the answer, but which group, millennials or boomers, which group is better at saving for retirement?
I think my money would actually be on millennials. I think that we'll find, as a component of overall salary, that they're going to end up with higher balances than boomers, mostly just because they get a 10-year start.
What considerations do you think that the employers should have when they're viewing a workforce that includes millennials and boomers? Is there anything with plan design or anything with investment options that employers should consider to attract and retain millennials?
As you mentioned, kind of alluded to, I think it depends on your workforce. I know as we look across our SageView clients, there are clients that tend to employ people in different age brackets. But I think for those clients that, employ younger folks, I think they're going to be forced to reckon with this request to allow cryptocurrency as a component of a retirement plan. We don't see it as an active discussion today, although we're, obviously sharing the DOL guidance with all of our committees. But I suspect in 2 to 3 years, definitely in 5 or 10, this discussion point will become much more interactive in our committee meetings.
And do you think features like matching contributions are growing in importance? So if we have a group of employees, millennials, who are more focused on retirement savings, does that raise the importance of 401k plan structure and profit sharing contributions, non-elective contributions, and matching contributions? Are those becoming more important for retaining employees?
I think that's really hard to say. I mean, innately, I'd think the answer is yes. Although, with the recent COVID crisis, I will say in my career, that was the time in which I saw the most amount of conversation and activity with plan sponsors around what should our employer contribution be? What should it look like? How should it be structured? I think the good thing for millennials is that I think we're at a point where I think most people recognize the fact that they are accountable for their own retirement plan outcomes. Whereas I think even 10 years, many employees were relying for more guidance from their employer on how much they should have at the end of retirement, where I feel like millennials are much more independent with regard to determining their own specific outcomes and relying less on employers.
So really the way that boomers and millennials engage with the retirement is different.
Yeah, that's been my observation for sure.
Well, Nichole, thank you so much for coming on to the Benefits Companion. That'll wrap up our discussion regarding the differences between millennials and boomers with respect to retirement savings. If listeners have any questions or suggestions for future episodes, please contact me. You can also visit our employee benefits page at williamsmullen.com/employee benefits. There you can find out more about our team as well as past episodes of this podcast and legal alerts. And finally, be sure to subscribe to this podcast to be notified when our next episode posts. Thanks for listening.